everyone. This is the Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and/or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. This week, I'm excited to have Mark Nagel on the podcast. He is amazing. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. This is the Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Young, your host. Today, I'm so excited to have Mark Nagel on the call with me, and he was referred to me, as you know, most people are referred to me. He was referred to me by a very close friend of mine, Kimberly Davis, who is an amazing person and actually a recent author of a book called Brave Leadership. She wrote about Mark when she sent him over that Mark brings more heart to his work than any leader I know. Heart for him is not soft, although he can be very tender and gentle when the situation calls for it. He's able to say the hard things, to hold people accountable and grow them beyond what they even envision for themselves. People want to follow Mark, which makes him the epitome of a brave leader. Thank you so much for coming on, Mark, because I am so excited to have this conversation with you based upon that introduction.
Well, thank you. And I am very humbled by the sweet words of Kimberly. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, it means so much. So tell us where you are for the listeners, where you are now in your leadership journey and in your career.
Right now, I'm pretty excited. I'm leading two initiatives in my company, one being an HR transformation where we're looking at the employee experience and trying to decide how can we provide the absolute best experience for our employees. I think we do a great job of it now, and we're just thinking about how can we do it even better in the future. And it's a very cross-functional. So it's across the whole company and getting everybody's input how to do that. And the other side, second part of it, if you will, the other leg of it, is using technology to enhance that experience and make it, again, better and easier for everybody to get their jobs done and just to feel more connected to the organization.
Oh, I love that. Ooh, all of it sounds good. You know, it's interesting. So your brand, the brand you work for is... You work for
Southwest Airlines. Yeah.
Yeah. So Southwest. So anybody listening, I think everybody knows that brand has a tremendous reputation for excellent customer experience, and knowing from that, you back yourself up and you look who's in the seat, and Mark is one of the players and leaders that's driving some of the efforts there. But to think that an organization like Southwest is still hiring and focusing people's efforts on HR transformation and also looking very holistically at the employee experience and realizing that technology is a portion of that. In any way that we can remove barriers and make jobs easier for the people that are interacting with our customers, the more we can make that environment fun. And I know my experience has really been always super, super fun. I've never, ever had a bad experience on Southwest Airlines. So it's pretty cool. I'm not trying to make a commercial here, but boy, it's really one of my favorite brands, and it is what it is. So thank you for doing the work that you do. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So what is it that drives you to lead? You know, some of us have like a story from our childhood or, just something happened in our life that made us realize that we needed to be in the position to lead others, but to also follow. What is it that drives you to do that?
Yeah, I think what drives me is in other companies I've worked for, I've had a reoccurring theme of seeing that those companies really believed in unleashing the power of their people, unleashing the power of every individual. And I've been very blessed that those companies that I've been with advocated for that and taught me that each person is valued and they're valued for what they have and for that special quality is about them. And I, as a leader, my job is to make sure that everybody can feel that, because some people might not feel that comfortable doing that. There might be something hindering them. It's either something that's in their environment. It might be something happened to them in the past. So how can we make sure that is unleashed? Make sure that every day they come in, they feel like I can totally be myself, and I've got something to add. I've got something to add to the story. I've got something to add to this work that we're doing, and that's what drives me is helping people discover that. I always talk about an 80-20 rule, where I feel that 80% of the answers are found with those within 20 feet of the work or the problem that we're facing. So we always have to go ahead and step back and allow those people to find those answers and help us discover those answers as leaders as well. So how do we get those speed bumps out of the way? How do we get everything so they feel comfortable discovering it and bringing it forward and fixing it?
I love it. I love that. I like what your new definition of the 80-20 rule. I love that idea that 80% of the results that we're looking for, the answers that we're looking for, are within 20 feet of basically a problem that we're facing. The reason why I love that is because what often happens, particularly at the senior and executive levels of the organization, is we often think that the answer is just amongst us, and that we can kind of land on it without including that voice of the employee, or even the voice of the customer, the folks that are at the front line experiencing either the customer or experiencing the products and services that we provide. And so in this case, your philosophy of, we don't need to go much further than just 20 feet away, the folks that are actually right on the front line. I think it's great. It's just awesome. Love it.
Absolutely. And there's something special when you see the sparkle in people's eye when they feel that they have found that answer. And it just makes me just feel warm when I see that.
I love that. I can so see why Kimberly referred you to my show here. I also love this idea of the fact that you're driven to unleash the power of people and their kind of individualism and what their individual power is. I love that too, that unleashing part. It says to me like it's all housed within us, and it takes just really astute leaders, ones who are really paying attention, to pull those out from within each of the people that we lead. And I love that you said that. That's great.
Absolutely. The power is there. I think one of the things we have to kind of look at is we all are okay exactly how we are. We don't need other people to re-engineer us. We just need other people to let us know it's okay to come out and play.
Oh, I love it. Love it. And it's funny, even what you just said, that last thing, it's okay to come out and play, totally is demonstrated in that frontline Southwest employee, the folks that are, either doing the baggage claim, or the folks that are on the aircraft itself, and they're just the fun things they do. So I can see that if that philosophy about kind of playing at work, being serious about the safety, making sure that processes and things are in place, but in the end, it's about, coming and having fun at what we do, I think it's great. You just demonstrated that for me at least, and hopefully for those that are listening. So how would you define your actual leadership style? It's kind of hard because I know it changes here and there, but what do you think? How can you pinpoint your leadership style for us?
I think I guess there's like three prongs to it. The one, and I guess this is how I would define my style, is that I lead with my heart, and that starts with being a servant. You have to be a servant to your team. My job is to provide resources to my team, either, whether it's something as much as a budget or a vision, or again, sometimes it's just that permission to go ahead and no, that's not for me. You do that. You don't have to have me to have permission to do things. One of my favorite phrases is, everybody should feel comfortable to lead from any seat at the table. It's not about me as a leader. It's not about my, leading this team. We all, at different times of the journey, are going to be sitting in that leadership seat, and we all need to feel comfortable with looking to each other for those leadership moments. So as a leader, my job is to go ahead and be a servant and help them discover that. I'd probably say the second prong is to always be a learner and never think that I know it all, and to learn from my team every day. I think that's the thing that lots of times leaders feel, that they have to put like a big S on their chest, and hey, I've got to know everything, and I've got to have all the answers for them. But again, if we go back to that 80-20 rule, 80% of those answers are found with our team. So we need to always have our learner's hat on and saying, what can I learn from each one of my team members today? What can you teach? And to thank them for that. One of my favorite things to do is say, like, you taught me something today. I didn't know that. And people feel valued when they feel like they've taught something and that they've given something back. I mean, it's like it's giving a gift, and it's important for us to thank them for those moments. And finally, the third thing I would say in my style is I like to assume that there's greatness all around me. Everybody around me is great, and I just haven't learned about it yet. And so I have to learn about what's great about you. What is it? So by doing that, you make everybody feel valued and they feel safe. And you think about what is it that sometimes makes us shrink? It's because of the fact that we don't feel safe. If we don't feel safe, we're not going to give ourselves, and we're not going to maybe put our toe in the water out there. But if you feel totally safe, you're going to go and feel like, I can take on the world. So I think by me assuming that there's greatness all around me and showing that to my team, they are going to go ahead and they're going to give their absolute best because they feel valued and they feel safe.
I'm feeling like I should put your face instead of mine on this podcast cover.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Yes, that's so sweet.
Really, because of I do think that you absolutely represent the type of leader that I was thinking of having on the show. Now, I'm going to get to the point here soon where we ask you, to kind of talk about a time when when you weren't best leader. And of course, we'll reveal to everybody that even the best leaders have times when they weren't so great and kind of, take us through that story. So when everything is kind of crazy at work and everybody's kind of running in different directions and you're busy and your team's busy, and how do you reconnect with them? What do you do to connect with them on a deeper level?
Sometimes it's taking the time. I think the most important thing is so many times we get so busy, and sometimes as a leader, you've got to say, hold it. We've got to stop. We got to stop. And sometimes it's as much as, let's go take a walk around the building. Just go walk around the building and just reconnect. And then it's just talking about not necessarily work stuff too. It's talking about us as people. So what's going on in knowing those personal things about each other. So tell me about that vacation you went on last week. Well, how was it? I really like the pictures I saw on Facebook of you and your family. I didn't know you had that hobby, and say clearing our minds of getting out of the task and get back into what connects us. I think that's the thing. Sometimes we get disconnected from each other because we start connecting ourselves to tasks and to things, and that's not where it's at. Where it's at is the connection between us as people and as flesh and blood human beings and as the spirits with each other. So I think it's important that we have to sometimes stop and get ourselves reconnected just by taking those simple moments, because I don't think it's any big fancy scientific equation. I think it's just more like just getting connected to each other and having those moments.
I love that. What I really love about it is we often think, when you think of connection or reconnecting from a leader to a team, you may think of more formal things like team building retreats or team building activities where you're going and getting out of the office and going to do something together, which is fun. But one of the things that I heard from you, and I definitely agree with, that connection doesn't have to cost a thing. It can cost your time. It just costs your focus. And you're taking that time to just give away the time that might be for work to really find out more about them as people and to relate with them as people, like you said, as human beings, as flesh and blood. So
yeah, and if you think about it, if we have to wait till, we're going to reconnect in a week, and it's going to be in this special event, and then it's almost, one, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, and you're also kind of putting a lot of heaviness on that event. And why do we have to wait for a week? Why do we have to wait for 2 weeks? We should be doing it every day. Every day, we should have those connection moments. It might be just, 10 minutes sitting we have culture centers here, places where we just have, lots of seats and chairs and places to just hang out. And it's just like, just spending 10 minutes just talking and reconnecting. Those are the moments that matter versus having to have think about it, any married couple or they don't. I'm sorry, honey. We're going to go ahead and meet in 2 weeks, and we will have that's relationships are built and grown every day. And if you neglect them and wait for that 2 weeks, that's when you get disconnected, and that's when things can happen. I think it's important that every day is an opportunity to build.
I love that. Yeah, again, because we do kind of overcomplicate this thing. Sometimes we have to kind of set aside the time, and if you keep it like your way, you really don't have to have an event. You can have some members of the team, if they're into kind of having parties and socials, they can form that if that's not you, and then you can kind of be there with them. But these kind of informal things where you're just taking that time, it really shows them that they're so important. They're not just a number.
Right.
Not just that thing you got to go do, but you're a part of, and they're a part of your daily process. Because it's just who you are and who they are. You're just connected to them naturally, and you want to stay there. Not a lot of people have that. What I find is that you're either focused on people or you're not. And I'm not saying that you can't get better, or else I wouldn't be having this show. I do think that by increasing awareness inside of leaders, that they can see that taking that time and thinking more about the people will help them focus more on the people. But I think it's as you alluded to, you have to spend time with people to get to know them. And so spending that time helps to build the trust, helps to build the rapport, helps to build a deeper connection. And you can't expect your team to go to the nth degree for you if you haven't done all that work ahead of time, right?
I absolutely. I think each and every one of us can find 10 minutes in our day, instead of like, oh, I think I can go ahead and knock out another 15 emails. I would say stop, pull away from that computer, and go talk to somebody. Go sit down and build. That is, you'll get more energy. The person will get more energy, and in the long run, building relationships is going to do a lot more than those 15 emails will ever do. So I think it's just taking that time to recognize it and stop ourselves.
Yeah. And sometimes that takes a lot. The emotional intelligence side of things says to me, you really do have to be aware. You have to sense it or feel it in order to then stop yourself. It's really hard if you don't have the awareness to do that. And I do offer. I actually am certified in emotional and social intelligence, and I do offer some workshops. And then the reason why I say that is because sometimes there are leaders out there who aren't like you, naturally aware, self-aware, or even aware of the people around them and how they're feeling. But there are ways to drive up that awareness on both sides. You can be a different leader than you are today is the key. You don't have to be who you are, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of the key. All right. So take us through a time then when you weren't this spectacular leader that you are today, right? You weren't your best self. You were like, I could have been better in that moment, in that situation, during that time. And then what did you do to come out of it? Be as specific as you can.
I think that it always, in those moments when we have some of the greatest learnings, is the times when we weren't feeling the best, right? So I think it was a time when I was working in another company, and it was a very, very good company, but I was working in a part of the organization that was very sales driven. It was a sales company, and it was just so driven. It was very competitive, and the behaviors that was there. And I was in a human resource position, and it was to the point of maybe almost borderline, not maybe bullying, but because the competition was so tough, there was a great celebration of winners and losers. And I could tell that it was going against my grain. It's like I'm trying to pet the dog's hair the opposite direction. It just doesn't work, right? And that's how I felt. I was just like, oh my gosh, the fact of creating an environment where everybody feels like if I'm not this, I'm not valued. If I'm not ranked in this top 10, I'm not a valued person. And you would see physically how it took its toll. And I'm going, I'm HR, and I felt like I was a little bit of a failure because I wasn't driving these leaders that were around me to see that they were still caught up in the numbers and the stats versus saying like, how can we change behaviors so we can all win and we can all succeed? And how can the person that might be ranked one, how can we all collaborate and do the 80-20 rules together as a team? And I didn't do that. In fact, I saw myself shrinking a bit because it was just draining energy from me. Seeing the data, because it was like the company was leading from a very scorecard mentality. And I found myself shrinking, and and that's why I think where I wasn't my best. I think I should have stood up and been more vocal and been a lot more. Instead, I found myself like it was just. I'm just going, well, I guess this is the way it is, and I'm going to have to just deal with it. And so I wasn't flourishing. Luckily, I found a amazing mentor from that moment in the company, and she recognized it, and she says, maybe the sales area of the company might not also be the place where you're going to have to be. And so she brought me and actually promoted me into another area of the company where I got to design some training and design other materials and eventually lead some of our best practices in inclusion and diversity in the company. And it's where I just took off, and then I grew more. So I think from all those moments, we have those moments where we learn that it just wasn't a great fit. Maybe wasn't thing, but it's also, I think I could have led a little bit louder. And I think that's where I learned a little bit there too.
Do you feel now since then, I guess, have you ever been in that similar situation where you felt like the culture was kind of overtaking everything in a negative way, and you felt you were supposed to be the voice, and you did actually, you did speak up? So kind of a similar situation presents itself, and you actually then see that you feel stronger and you use that voice and kind of are the catalyst for maybe more positive change. Have you had that yet?
Yeah. Yes, I have. I actually help out in different organizations and in a couple nonprofits, and those are really sometimes some pretty dicey moments because we're in nonprofits. You're working with volunteers, and everybody wants to give their all, but there can be some a lot of difficult moments there. And so one of the things that Kimberly, who I just admire, she's always said the thing that she sees in me that I make people feel safe. And so she says, leverage that. She's always coached me. She's a great friend, coach, and mentor. Just leverage that. And so in those moments, in some of those non-profit moments where we might have some, a little bit of clashes and things like that, where maybe, as I said earlier, I might have shrunk and just said, oh, just let it play out and everybody just go ahead and fight it out or something. I stop and I become the leader, and I find myself saying, let's have everybody feel safe so everybody can hear each other's voices. And that's many times what happens in conflict and difficult situations like that everybody's voice isn't heard and everybody doesn't feel heard. And when you feel heard, then you can sometimes agree that, we might have to agree to disagree, but at least my voice was able to be heard in this moment. And then I feel safe. And then I might just have to say that for the better of the whole team or nonprofit, we're going to have to go this direction. But at least I feel that I had that moment, and I feel I've been able to do that.
Oh, I love that. I love the I talk a lot about voice of the employee. It's kind of the thing it's a space that I work in a lot with employee engagement surveys and employee focus groups and things like that. And the one thing that I really have never done, which you did just really beautifully just now, is connect this idea of feeling heard with feeling safe. And, I never put my finger on that. And so this idea of voice for me stems back to my childhood when, to be honest, I didn't always feel so safe. And I felt like my voice didn't matter and I didn't feel important. But safety, I never really thought of it till just now, that there's a connection between not feeling heard and important and not feeling safe. And I thank you for connecting that dot for me and for the listeners, so that for the leaders listening, the more that we can create environments where employees can use their voices to impact the culture and impact their situations in a positive way, the more that we increase their feeling of safety in all of it as well. Like they are I call it being taken care of, but that idea of safety is even more powerful. So thank you for that. That was awesome.
If you think about even, back to our days in school, and we look at the hierarchy of needs, safety is the first one. And if we can't get to past the point of feeling safe, then there's no way we can advance up that pyramid that we all learned many years ago. And that's the thing, is how can we stop and make sure as leaders, and leaders is not a title. It's just, we lead, each and every one of us lead from any seat of the table, be it in a building, corporate environment, or in our lives. Everybody leads from a seat at the table. How do we make each other feel safe? So, and that voice is always heard. And many times you see, as I was talking about in those nonprofit moments, is when you look at around the table, if you know someone that hasn't talked, ask them, what do you think? Invite them to the table. There might be a reason why they're not sharing. So invite them. And one of the things that I sometimes get, it's one of my, if you will, pet peeves, when I hear someone say, well, it's just my opinion, or I actually like to stop people in that moment and say, please don't do that. And they'll look at me funny. I'm going, don't say just. Your opinion, by saying just, you're minimizing your opinion. Your opinion matters just as much, if not more, than anybody at this table. So don't minimize your opinion. Have your voice, know that there's strength in your voice, and that in those moments you can literally physically see people, straighten up a little bit and feel a little bit more proud to put that out, and that's how they feel safe.
Normally, I would ask at the end of every call, what words of advice or bits of, some kind of bits of knowledge or something that you would want, leaders listening now that could be struggling in their leadership, being their ability to lead people, what are those last words of wisdom? And I feel like you hit the nail on the head. And instead of asking that question, because you really answered it in a very powerful way, I want to know, does your being in tune with people discounting the power in their voice, does that intuition have anything to do with like something that happened in the past for you, an upbringing, a place where you felt like you weren't as powerful in your voice or didn't have a voice? I'm just kind of curious, because for me it does, but I don't know if it would for everybody. I'm just kind of.
Oh, yes, it did. It actually happened. I was like many, many years ago when I was like, I think 21, I was, in college, and I had my first my first leadership role over a department. It was in retail, and I had a general manager that didn't allow me to have a voice, and it was basically, no, you just do what you're told, and I didn't feel like a leader. I'm going, well, if I'm a leader, you need to trust me, and I need to be able to bring my opinion. And it was just like, no, you will just, it was very hierarchical type of leading. And I remembered how I failed. I started struggling in that position, and they were actually at one point, well, you can't make it as leader, and they're ready to fire me and everything like that. And I reached out to HR, and I remember talking to this gentleman, and that's when I guess he taught me, that my voice was valued and that my voice counted. And that general manager of that building actually didn't last too much longer, because he was stifling all the voices around him. And just in that moment, I'm going, wow, this guy flew in all the way from wherever land to come in and hear me and value my voice. And even though I was several many layers down the pyramid from this leader, he valued it. I'm going, I want to do that. And that's, I think, it kind of said it became my quest for the rest of my leadership journey.
Oh, it's so interesting, because what I find in a lot of these stories, and usually when I'm doing talks, I automatically will ask, good manager, bad manager story, and what are the kind of traits of both of those. And what I also find is that folks are usually working, either trying to run away from the bad boss traits that they saw, that kind of made them feel like they were in living hell sometimes, and then the very good boss traits where they're like, I want to emulate that. And that's what you've done in a very powerful way. And, shame on that other person who was trying to, put out your fire and make it where you weren't, a human that had your own opinion and couldn't voice it and didn't want to grow you. It's a shame. There are people that are out there, a lot of them in this world, and hopefully nobody listening in here is that way, right? But making sure that we kind of put those people in their places. Good for HR, good for that HR person who told you, no, your voice is important. Kind of don't listen to the other person over here. Your voice matters. You are important. Good for them. I want to make sure that more HR people are doing that for the people that come to them, and also not just the words too. It's yes, yes, you are important, and let me see what I can do. Take it one step further from an HR professional perspective. I take it one step further and say, and here's what I'm going to do to show you how important your voice really is, right?
You bet. Yep.
Oh, I love it. This has been great. So the power that you left us with, this idea of feeling safe and connected to voice, I want to leave on that note. I think it's something that we all need to ponder as leaders. How are we allowing our people's voices to flourish, to be out there, and to help them to feel safe in the meantime is a powerful one to end on. So this has been amazing, Mark. I really appreciate you accepting this, invitation and referral from Kimberly. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening will have taken a lot away. I know I have. I have a lot to ponder right now. So if anybody who's listening in wants to, get a hold of you, is there one way that they can do that in the meantime?
Absolutely. Through LinkedIn is probably the best way to get in touch with me, and Mark Nagel, Nagel, and I believe the LinkedIn hyperlink is Mark H. Nagel. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. And what I'll do is, for those who are listening, I will put together the show notes. So when you hear this, you can go check the website at customerfanatics.com, and there'll be all the highlights and some tweetables. And on there will also be Mark's contact information. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And again, Mark, this has been just amazing. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.